I can't stress enough how massive these differences are. When you're talking about a 4x difference in job losses, that is huge. And the really concerning thing is that now these things are going on for a year. How's it going, everyone? This is Nick from Reventure Consulting coming to you on Friday, April 16th, and we had a big news release today. The Bureau of Labor Statistics just dropped the March 2021 employment numbers for each state, and once again, there's just huge differences in the economic vitality and recovery of states across the country. Some states have recovered jobs. Some states have actually grown jobs over the last year during COVID. Meanwhile, you have other states across the country where literally 1 in 10 workers are unemployed. There has never been in recent history this type of regional difference in terms of how states across the country are doing. Simply put, some states are on the way to recovery. Other states are just slogging along and are mired in a deep recession. And this is really important for you to know as a home buyer or real estate investor, as I've talked about a lot on this channel. The economic economy, the local economic economy, job growth, wage growth, these are some of the most important things that are going to determine the future of your real estate investment, the future appreciation of your home, the future appreciation of, let's say, your townhome or duplex that you rent out. It's all going to come down to economic growth. So if we're seeing big differences in how certain areas of the country are growing economically, it's something that we need to take account of. It's something that we need to track, and it's something that you as a real estate investor need to include in your decision-making process about where you want to buy real estate in the United States. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to walk you guys through the latest release from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, break down each state in terms of its economic recovery, and try to identify the states that are doing the best, the states that are doing the worst, and also identify some reasons for why that might be. What are the reasons that certain states are doing better than others? So, without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, so we got a map of the great continental United States right here, and we got the 48 continental US states, and we're color coding them by the percentage change in jobs in each state since February 2020. So we're using February 2020 as the base year because that was basically the last normal month for the economy before COVID hit, and then we're doing this through March 2021. So the percentage change in jobs from February 2020 to March 2021, which is the most recent data that was just released today by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So you're getting this real time, just it was released. And the redder the state looks, the stronger the economic recovery. The bluer the state looks, the worse the economy overall. So let's just start by looking at some examples. Probably the first things that stick out to you are Idaho and Utah in deep red here. So in Idaho, the state has actually gained 10,000 jobs over the last year, plus 1.3%. Idaho, along with Utah, are the only two states in the country to have gained jobs in the last year. When you think about that, that's pretty amazing that a state in the midst of one of the worst recessions that we've experienced in a long time could gain jobs, especially during COVID. That's truly impressive. So Idaho and Utah are really kind of the beacons of economic growth right now in the United States. Some other states that are doing really well. Montana has only lost 1% of its jobs. South Dakota has only lost 1.5%. Nebraska has only lost 2.3%. So you can see kind of these plains state areas, right? Like kind of in the plains states all the way through the mountain states. This just area of the country is the area that's doing the best economically right now. Now, the other area that's doing pretty well economically is the South and Southeast, right? You can see a pretty good area of red here, basically North Carolina, Tennessee, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas. All of these states have lost about 2 to 3% of their jobs, which, look, that's an economic recession, but that's not too bad, considering everything, especially to some of the other states on this map. You can see states like Texas and Arizona at minus 3.5%. They are also doing well above average. They're experiencing strong recoveries. So I spent a lot of time putting these videos together. I love sharing this data on real estate demographics and economics with you guys. I would really appreciate it if you could just hit the like button. It takes 2 seconds. Just hit the like button. That will help more people see these videos. Please also comment on the video. I want to hear what you're thinking. Do you agree with what I'm saying? Do you disagree with what I'm saying? I want to hear your opinion. Also, please make sure to subscribe if you haven't done that. I post 2 to 3 videos per week. You're not going to want to miss this content, so please make sure to subscribe. All right, back to the video. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, we have the states in blue. And let's just start with New York. New York State has lost 10% of its jobs year over year. You can see that that's nearly 1 million jobs across the state gone. 1 out of 10 workers in New York unemployed for over a year at this point. Absolutely crazy. And you can see, look, there's a little hotbed here in the Northeast where Massachusetts also has high job losses. Vermont also has high job losses. New Jersey, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania also have elevated job losses. So this Northeast cluster here is really hard hit economically right now. And, the recovery is not happening as fast as you would want to. A place like New York, they were around minus 11% job losses 4 or 5 months ago. Now they're minus 10%. So the recovery has just been really, really slow. The other area we need to point to is the West Coast. California, minus 8.6%. That's 1.5 million jobs in California gone over the last year. California is, to their credit, they're making some strong recovery over the last month or two, but they still have a long ways to go at minus 8.6. And just the nominal amount there, 1.5 million, that's crazy. Nevada is another state that's been hit really hard, minus 10%. Clearly this has something to do with Las Vegas being the big economic driver in Nevada, and of course with traveling down, with restrictions and hotels and hospitality and all that kind of stuff. A state like Nevada is struggling. Business, leisure, and hospitality industry is not doing well. So now you guys are starting to see just the scale of these differences, right? When you have minus 10% in New York, minus 9% in California, 3 to 4 to 5 times higher these job losses than in places like Tennessee, Arkansas, and South Dakota. And these, I can't stress enough how massive these differences are. When you're talking about a 4x difference in job losses, that is huge. And the really concerning thing is that now these things are going on for a year. These regional economic differences are a year old. And if you read any literature on long-term unemployment, basically when people are unemployed for more than 6 months, it's very bad. I mean, when you're unemployed for 6 to 12 months, you tend to lose skills. You tend to lose connection with your network. You tend to have a more difficult time finding a job in the future. Your life expectancy actually goes down permanently if you're long-term unemployed. So these are really concerning issues broadly in the local economy, and they're really concerning issues for the real estate markets and these economies that have been hard hit. Because after all, like I said earlier, it's jobs which fundamentally drive the bus on real estate values. Job growth is what's going to add people who can buy homes. It's going to add people who can rent apartments. And so you need job growth for a healthy real estate economy. Now, let's try to analyze, why are these differences existing? There's a lot of different, opinions out there. Obviously, the leisure and service sector got hit really hard in this recession. You see that in a case like Nevada. So potentially maybe a state's economic job concentration had something to do with it. But when you look at the data, that's not really the case. The number one predictor of how many jobs a state has lost over the last year is the stringency and restrictions in its COVID response. So basically the states with the heaviest COVID lockdowns, the most COVID restrictions, and I would say the most fear-mongering occurring from leadership in those states, those are the ones where the economies have been hit the hardest. If you go to states that had more of lax or laissez-faire response to COVID, those states are the ones where jobs really haven't declined by much. where job recovery is occurring, where in the case of Idaho and Utah, jobs have actually increased year over year. So it's really the response to COVID that's driving these regional economic differences. So you can see what I'm talking about on this graph, where we're comparing a state's COVID restrictiveness in terms of its regulations on, indoor dining, mask wearing, things like that. We're comparing their COVID restrictions to the job losses data that we were just looking at before over the last year. And this COVID restriction data, this came from Wallet Hub, and basically they rank states on the amount of COVID regulations and restrictions they had. And I basically aggregated the scores over the last 4 to 6 months to kind of get an average of over the last 6 months, how have these states been responding to COVID? And so basically, the further left you go here, the higher the COVID restriction score. That means more restrictions, more lockdowns, less indoor dining, more mask wearing, et cetera, et cetera. And then here is the job loss change on the y-axis. So the bottom left here, you see states like California, Vermont, Massachusetts, DC, New York, New Jersey, New Mexico, Connecticut. These are states with high COVID restrictions, lots of job losses. Now you go to the other end of this graph, low COVID restrictions, minimal job losses, these dots in green, Idaho, Utah, South Dakota, Arkansas, South Carolina, Montana, Tennessee, Alabama. These are states where they did not have very many COVID restrictions, and their economies are better off for it. And you can see the relationship here is really strong. We have an R squared of 0.44, meaning that on its own, the COVID restrictions explain almost half of the state's economic performance on their own. We're not considering anything related to what the state's job concentration was, tourism, anything like that. COVID restrictions on their own explain nearly half of the job losses that are occurring across America in different states. And so I think you can take a positive from this and a negative from this. The positive is that the states that have lots of job losses, since COVID restrictions had a lot to do with it, as they open up, hopefully some of these jobs come back. So I think that's the positive angle here, is that some of these states like California, New York, Massachusetts, as they open, and they are opening, hopefully some of these jobs will come back quickly. However, there's a negative take on this, and that's that basically states like California, Massachusetts, New York, Connecticut, for a long time, they've had an advantage in terms of business and industry in America. They were kind of the focal point of where high-income earners went, where businesses went. But that's something that's been eroding over the last 10 years or so as the South and mountain states gain. And I think it's a trend that's going to accelerate now when you see places like Utah, Idaho, Tennessee, Texas. More and more companies, more and more people over the last year have made the decision to relocate to those states, right? They said to themselves, I see there's more economic opportunity here. I see I have more freedom here. I'm going to move to these states. And that could be creating a permanent change in basically the economic realities in these states. So I would not be surprised if some of the states like California, Massachusetts, and New York have permanent job losses based on what's occurred over the last year, and if they basically never really get back to the levels they were before. However, we're going to have to track this data month by month in real time to see. There's definitely an economic recovery going on, so make sure to subscribe to my channel, and I'll be posting each month. Every month, this new data comes out from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I'll be updating you guys, so you're going to know what the economic realities are and the real estate markets that you are investing in. Until next time, this is Nick from Reventure Consulting signing off.